Money FM 89.3. Best of breakfast. The bigger picture, only on Money FM 89.3.
Good morning. Welcome to The Bigger Picture. Tech stocks are in focus this week as the CES trade show in Las Vegas rolls out with a lot of focus on what's happening with Nvidia, AI, and the semiconductor space, and of course all the fancy gadgets coming out from that front. So let's check in now with Rodda. He is the Senior Financial Market Analyst at Capital.com. Carl, thanks for joining us on the show today. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So let's dive into what's been happening in Las Vegas. And of course, in focus was a speech by Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang talking up AI. And he's saying, it's going to be the future, of course, and how the IT department is going to be the new HR department with all the AI agents that will be coming on board. And then there are so many things that will be needing AI services, infrastructure, and so on. What were your takeaways from what's been going on with Nvidia and how that's been spurring a lot of optimism with the AI outlook?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's kind of like a bit of an amusement park and a sort of field of dreams for people in this space. Really sort of allows both investors as well as innovators to come together and talk about some of the blue sky opportunities that exist in artificial intelligence and how they can be obviously expanded right across the economy. And I think, obviously the core takeaway from Jensen Huang's speech was effectively that he sees a world in which, there'll be basically an Nvidia chip in everything that you own, and that, it'll have that kind of revolutionary capacity to sort of change the way that we consume. We, obviously relate to each other and we do business. I mean, I don't know if there was anything necessarily that was all of that market moving on the aggregate. I mean, obviously the markets didn't sort of shift a great deal on the event itself, and certainly probably rallied into that Jensen Huang speech and sold off Nvidia shares at least off the back of it. But like I said before, it's really a sort of an ecosystem for people to kind of share ideas and paint pictures of the future and sort of almost fantasize and create dreams of what AI will be able to do and how it will obviously revolutionize the way that we relate to one another and do business with one another.
Yeah, talking about that ecosystem, there are a lot of ways that the AI story can play out. Are there any spaces or stocks or sectors in this ecosystem that you think are perhaps overlooked right now that investors can focus on?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's obviously up until this point in time a lot of talk about the kind of very high level, and again, it tends to be in these sorts of events of very blue sky thinking when it comes to these sorts of basically marketing events. But, the things that I think we really started to hear about was sort of the practical changes that, artificial intelligence can have on organizations, and especially the sort of, innovation that businesses can kind of drive through the adoption of artificial intelligence. But a lot of that comes down to basically information technology and how information is processed within an organization and how much quicker artificial intelligence can achieve that compared to obviously human resources. But the other part of it too was sort of automating processes right across, like you said, the HR functions, sort of removing the human element there and all the biases that potentially come with humans being involved in the HR process, right from onboarding an employee to sort of managing them and managing their performance. And then there's also the other elements too when it comes to sort of, the financial modeling of a business's performance, simple accounting functions, and then all the way out to sort of more complex and abstract things like, strategizing for businesses and being able to kind of project that into the future, new business models and new ideas, new concepts that can potentially, highlight opportunities and highlight markets that perhaps human beings either lack the imagination or at least the breadth of thought to be able to envisage themselves. So again, it's all very pie in the sky and all very blue sky kind of thinking, but it's just the way that AI and its applications can touch every level of an organization and obviously sort of touch every relationship between a business and its consumer.
Yeah, Carl, so quite a rosy picture that seems to be painted about where things are going with AI. So with that in mind, how do you see Nvidia as a stock right now? Do you think it's overvalued or there's still more room to run?
I think it's richly valued. The kind of rule of thumb that I have with this stock as far as market timing is whenever you see the price to sales ratio getting towards that sort of 40 or above level, you tend to see investors no longer wanting to pay any richer premium than that, basically on the basis that it's a level that they're priced in pretty much the most optimistic growth assumptions about the business going forward, especially as it relates to market share. And I think if you sort of tie it back to what Jensen Huang was saying during the week, was that he was trying to paint a picture of a dominant Nvidia, which basically has a near monopoly on the market. And as a result, the company's valuation is more or less, justified by the scale that the business will be able to climb. It becomes a kind of a short-term, long-term question. I think this is probably something that's been fleshed out in recent earnings results now that, the company's earnings have been easier to project. The upside risk to the stock has diminished. And as a result, the kind of distribution of probabilities when it comes to sort of the company's performance become much more narrow as investors understand how to price this company, is that it's trading much more like any other stock, and investors are asking a lot less about whether they should just chase the momentum and shifting that kind of focus to what's a good value to pay to this company, again, on the assumption that it continues to grow over time, which is pretty much everyone's base case. So for now, especially with, the macroeconomic backdrop and the impacts that we're seeing on risk-free rates from, a run-up in the 10-year yield, the stock looks pretty expensive. But again, those buying opportunities tend to emerge, into the 120s once again, where there seems to be a little bit of a base. And that rule of thumb of, a price-to-sales ratio of around 40 to 1 is a sort of good line in the sand to sort of determine where the stock is a little bit richly valued.
It does look a bit rich on the front, but it still continues to run. And talk about what is also on the table when it comes to stuff catching attention. Of course, CES underway in Las Vegas. A lot of innovation, some interesting, some weird. What's caught your eye? I've got this one in front of me, which is a solar-powered EV. You can charge it by parking it in the sun, which is great. So anything else you think caught your eye?
Yeah, I mean, if you sort of talk about virtual reality space and also other things that sort of delve towards away from just commercial applications, or I suppose you could say supply-side applications of artificial intelligence, and talking about how artificial intelligence can sort of change human relationships, whether that be, providing greater experiences in terms of virtual reality or gaming experiences or whatever it happens to be able to connect with people over, vast differences and with, very, very big time barriers between one another is awfully interesting. And then you kind of get to the more like dystopian elements where, products that are going to almost create artificial intelligence friendships or relationships that people can kind of use as a kind of a social outlet, engage with as if it was, not just a way of building a nexus between people, but creating a personality on the other side of things completely artificially that people can relate to in order to sort of fulfill that desire for obviously social connection and what have you. So if you talk about weird things, for me, that's when things start to get a little bit weird and a little bit strange. But as we've already seen with a lot of, chatbots, we've already seen with a lot of, virtual games and online gaming, things like that, where they play, people can play with and engage with virtual adversaries or allies. There seems to be this demand for, again, human relations or human-robot relations that is interesting, a little bit dystopian, but also very interesting nevertheless.
All right, Carl, talking about quirky stuff, would you buy this? A ThinkBook from Lenovo, a laptop basically, with a rollable screen, so you can extend it from 14 inches to a screen that's 16 inches for a price of $3,500.
I like that idea for the trading floor, actually. A lot of our desks here are pretty tight and we require a lot of screen space, which sometimes can mean that we're bumping into each other a little bit when the days are busy. Of course, we're like anyone else. We do the whole sort of hot desking thing and a hybrid working model. But sometimes space can be a little bit tight and we do need a lot of screen space. I like the idea of a retractable screen where we can sort of adjust that a little bit, makes it easier for us. I wouldn't have to pay for it as well. It would be the business expense. So I like that idea.
All right. Lots to talk about when it comes to CES. And we've been talking to Carl Rodda. He is a senior market analyst at capital.com. Carl, thanks for your time today.
Thanks for the chat.
All right. Great catching up with you, Carl. Stay on Money FM 89.3.
Before acting on the information on Money FM, please consider if it's suitable for your own investment objectives, financial situation, and risk tolerance. To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.